Hi creative friends, my name is Ashley the Thrifty Chica. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be creating some custom wine glasses using wine glasses from Target and some Cricut vinyl. It's a really easy and inexpensive craft and it looks really nice and custom. So if you guys want to create something on a budget that's really fun, make sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future content, and we're going to get started learning more about this process. Also, while you're here, check out the links in the description box. They'll take you directly to each project that we're creating today, and you won't have to worry about the sizing because it'll already be ready to go. So let's go ahead and get started. Here are the supplies you'll need for this project. We're going to be using the permanent glossy vinyl in the color blush for this one, the kind of holographic looking one. And for the green one, we're going to be using the permanent vinyl in the color white, as well as some transfer tape. These glasses are from Target. I'll have them linked in the description box below. That way you can check them out in case you're interested in picking them up as well. We're going to be starting out with the green glass first. So for this one, we're going to go ahead and get this cut. We're going to take the permanent vinyl, apply it to the mat, and cut out the little decal, weed it, and apply it. So we have the permanent vinyl, and permanent vinyl has two sides. One is the glossy side and one is the side with the grid. We're going to place this so it's grid side down, which leaves the glossy side up. We're just going to press this firmly on, and now we're ready to cut out this section. We'll press the button to load. We're going to be using the standard fine point blade that comes with the machine. This is a great project for any of the Cricut machines such as the Maker, the Explorer series, and the Cricut Joy. Project is finished. We're going to unload this. And to remove your project from the mat, you're going to flip your mat over. You'll take a hold of your project and keep that as flat as possible and just roll your mat away. Same thing with this one. We're going to cut a small piece and apply this to the mat. We're applying it glossy side up. And just make sure that you smooth it down completely on the mat so that there's no major air bubbles. We're ready to load our project into the machine. Okay, it's ready to unload. Ready to unload the project from the mat, so I'm going to flip it over and just hold the project down and roll this away. Now I have both pieces cut and ready. So the next step is to take our glasses, and we're going to want to make sure that they're nice and clean. I have a alcohol wipe that I'm going to take and I'm going to run it over the glasses just to make sure they're nice and clean. You also want to take a look at where the seams are in the glasses. So a lot of times on the sides there will be seams. We want to make sure we're not placing our decal on those sides. So we're going to go ahead and clean the whole glass and then just set it so that way it's ready for us to apply the decals to once it dries. Okay, so I have the first one done, and this one is in white, so it's pretty much impossible to see how I weed that. So I'm going to show you on the one that has a little bit more color to work with. And if you don't have nails, one of the easiest tricks I know for starting it is just to use your weeding tool and just lift up from the corner, and it'll help you start your project pretty quickly. Whenever I'm working with something that's small, I like to have a strong light source nearby, and I just kind of take my tool and hold down the decal as I'm lifting away. If you're working with something like permanent vinyl, it's more likely to lift and pull apart your pieces as you're working. So I like to always cut around as I'm working too, so that way I'm removing any extra pieces as we go, because these will get stuck to your hands as you're working. So this is a great idea to keep something nearby where you can place all your little scraps, like a little trash can or a lint roller, so that way it comes in handy for keeping your work surface clear. And remember, if you find any difficult points where it's hard to get something to lift up, you can always use your tool for multiple different reasons. You can use it to help sweep underneath where you're trying to lift up, and that will help or you can use it to help hold down the section that you're working on. So I just did the letter E here, and as you can see, it's a little bit difficult because there are a lot of little curves and twists to that letter. So that's why I'm, holding down some sections and lifting under other sections just to make it easier on myself. Here's a tip too, whenever you're working on anything that has any type of punctuation or something like J's or I's where there are little dots, make sure you hold down those sections as you're lifting the vinyl away. You want to make sure that they stay attached to the background. Those are the pieces most likely to get lost. So now we're ready to remove the center portions on here, and what we're going to do is take wherever our letter is that we need to remove that center portion, place your finger right behind it, and you can kind of roll over it, and you should be able to lift away that center piece a lot easier just having it on kind of an angle there and with a little bit of pressure behind it. This is where we're going to break out a small section of transfer tape, and we're going to cut this to fit our project here. Whenever you're working on a 3D object, just keep in mind that depending on how severe the curve is on the item, such as this, if it's very severely curved, you're going to end up having to cut little relief points in the transfer tape. And what I mean by that is when you place an object on a surface, if it is a curved surface like this, it won't lie flat. As you can tell, there are pieces that are kind of up from this section and it's flat on some other sections. So what we would have to do is cut little strips in here to make sure that it adheres completely towards the bottom and on the sides and the top. So usually transfer tape is reusable, but if you're using it for a project that's 3D like this, you're more likely only going to be able to use it once. So just as a heads up, and we're going to remove the transfer tape from the backing here. You'll notice that the transfer tape has a sticky grid on it, and the grid really helps when you're trying to line up a project to make sure everything is straight on there. So what I'm going to do is place this over the decal, and I have it so that only the center is touching the decal, and then I'm just rolling it out towards the sides. The reason I work with this in such a controlled manner where I'm only doing one small section at a time is to make sure that it doesn't get a ton of air bubbles behind it. This will make sure you have a better result when you're applying it. You'll also want to break out your Cricut scraper tool, and we're going to start in the middle and just press the air bubbles out towards the outside and the corners. And you'll want to go over this a lot longer than you might think, just because you get the best results if you spend more time in preparation. And a lot of times when people say that they have difficulties with working with permanent vinyl, I've noticed that this tends to be the biggest problem, is rushing through this part of the process. So take your time. This is a great time to like play a podcast, listen to some music, that sort of thing when you're working on these types of projects. And that way you can be kind of, zen and just focus on what you're doing in the moment. And I really love that part about working on these projects. So just take your time and have fun with it while you're working. We're going to take our decal, flip it over, and I like to repeat the same process on the back. It means that it's more likely to adhere to the transfer tape if you spend a little bit of extra time and work on it from the back as well. Moment of truth, we're going to remove the backing from our project here. And it's looking good. The tape and the decal itself will be very, very sticky, so be careful when you're ready to place it. We're going to get our glass here. It's already been pre-cleaned, and what I'm going to do is decide on which side I think it's going to look the best. So I'm going to place it on this side. I'm just checking to make sure where the sides are on it, and so it's on these sides here. And what I'm going to do is take my decal, and because this is a pretty long decal, we're going to go ahead and cut some little relief sides in here. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut right in between the different sections here. and just cut little strips. And the reason for this is it helps it to go around the project a lot easier if you have little sections where the pressure can be relieved and it can lay flat. So this should be, it'll show up more as the top section, the middle section, and the bottom section. So now we're ready to place this on our project. You can hold it and place it from the side. That's one way to do it. Or if you prefer, you can always hold it in your hand. I tend to hold the projects in my hand when I'm working on them and just make sure that it's centered, hold it in my hand, and then I take a look at it and I place it from that direction. So I'm going to hold this down and I'm just going to control this and place it so that it is right in the middle here. And we're going to work on pressing this section down first, just this top middle section. So we're going to start with the top and I'm just going to roll this out towards the outside. And this is where having those little slits really comes in handy. Roll this over towards that side. And now we're ready to work on the middle. So I'm just rolling this out towards the outside here. I'm going to roll this direction as well. If you're having any problems with how it's laying, you can lift it up just a little bit before you really get it applied and you'll have better luck. And also, if you're really struggling to work with a project on applying to glass, or you're finding that you're having a lot of air bubbles, there is a technique called using the wet method. And that's what professionals do whenever they're applying large signs. And what they do is they take a spray bottle with a specific concentration of materials. I'll link a video to it for you guys so that way you can check it out. And they use it wet, so they apply it wet behind the decal and then it dries and you get no bubbles. So it's a really great way to do it. So I'm gonna go ahead and this section here is going to end up applying where that transfer tape is. So I'm gonna have to hold that off a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and start applying this. You'll notice the scraper tool just will not work in this situation because it is a curved surface. So this is where you're going to want to break out some type of rag or a cloth, and you're going to use it so it becomes essentially like your scraper tool. And I'm just going to hold this in my hand and kind of ball it up, and I'm going to press down and continue doing the same kind of process I would do normally with my scraper tool. So I'm working from one section out, and I'm just going to flatten it, kind of press the air bubbles out and away. And you may have to go over it for a little bit, and that's completely understandable since we are working on a 3D project. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer to apply, but it's really great. You get great results. And in case you guys are wondering how long permanent vinyl lasts on a project like this, you can really get a significant amount of wear on them. I had glasses that have lasted 2 and 3 years, even in the dishwasher, on the top rack of the dishwasher. Normally it's recommended hand wash only, just for your own reference, but if you throw them in the top rack of the dishwasher for regular glasses, a lot of times they'll last longer than you might think that they would. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, and I've spent some time on this. I'm going to go ahead and remove this and start from the corner. Pull this down. You'll notice your transfer tape is tearing as you pull it off. That's because we cut slits in it, so don't be alarmed when that happens. It's just part of the normal process here. So I'm just pulling on this. So I have this section here. The tail is the last part that I'm adhering, and the reason for this is this kind of curved upwards a little bit and the other transfer tape was in the way. So I want to remove the other transfer tape section, and that way this section can lay down where that transfer tape was. So it'll be a nice snug fit between those two sections. So I'm going to go back over here and go over where the tail was and then remove that section. And one reason I really love creating projects like this is you can find something that you would never be able to find anywhere else. So I think that turned out really cute. Let's go ahead and take a look at what the other one looks like once I get that applied. So we have our other glass here. Same thing as before. I have the regular decal. This is in white, so you're probably not going to be able to see it very well. I'm going to speed forward through this part and just show you when it's applying so you can see what it looks like once I remove it. Okay, you might be able to see the decal a little bit better now. And we're gonna follow the same process for this one. We're gonna cut little relief strips in this, in between each section so that it can lay down flat. I'm gonna take my cup and I'm gonna find the center point. It's gonna look good there. Just place that center section down, and I'm holding up the other piece, as you can see, with my hand, so I can just roll one side down. And we'll roll that top section there. Okay, these bottom ones, I need to cut a slit in between them so that way they can lay down easier. Okay. So the big thing when you're working with this is really just to work on one small section at a time. So I started in the middle, I rolled this top section, that middle section, and then this section, cut a slit, rolled that section down, worked on that section, applied that section, and then that section, and then applied this one downwards. So the transfer tape is all sorts of crazy on this one, so it's definitely going to tear off. We're going to break out our rag and go over it the same way as before, just kind of pressing on it to get an even pressure all the way across. And I like to work in this direction of the project with moving towards the outward points, so that way any air bubbles can kind of escape out. Okay, we're gonna flip this around and it's time for the moment of truth. We're gonna reveal everything here and see how it turned out. And remember, if you're pulling this down and you're noticing it's still stuck to the transfer tape, place the transfer tape back over and work on it some more, and then it should be ready to go after a little while. So there's that first section of the transfer tape. Next section. It's looking good. Looks pretty good. There's one small spot where there's little tiny air bubbles, so I need to go back in. It's where these books are, and the books have a little bit more surface area to cover. So I'm just going to take it and press it out towards the edge there, so that way it can escape. There we go. Now it's ready to be used. So what do you think of the finished glasses? Which one is your favorite? I think this would make such great customizable gifts. They're so neat to kind of create something that's just really custom for someone, and you can really make it fit their personalities. I think this will also be such a fun Mother's Day gift. So if you haven't yet, also check out the other videos that I have linked below. I have some really great Mother's Day gift ideas, and you might spy a candle in the background. That's going to be Monday's video. So I hope this video helped you out, and if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future content, and I hope you're having a wonderful day.